Hello and welcome to another Flower Light Mystery School podcast, and with me today is Charlotte.
Hello everyone.
And Christine.
Hello.
So let me start by saying happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
If you're Irish and even if you're not.
La Éile Porg.
La Éile Porg ditch.
And
Dave.
happy Sheela na gig Day
That's it.
also, which a lot of people don't know about, which is the female counterpart of Patrick, Sheela na gig. Some people say it was his wife, some people say it was his mother, but either way, it's the female counterpart anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I suppose, know more about Patrick, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
So also we want to say happy not St. Patrick's Day, sorry, happy Equinox.
Ah yes.
Tomorrow. So the equinox is on the 20th tomorrow. So
We're recording this.
That will be the day of balance.
Exactly.
So I wanted to talk about St. Patrick because, of course, we're just past St. Patrick's Day. And I wanted to talk about really, I suppose, bring in the connection between Egypt and Ireland in this particular subject, if you like, about St. Patrick. And kind of show how the connection is there, you know, that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know. So the name Patrick, I'll start by saying anyway, the name Patrick is, it's two words. Patrick is two words. It's made up of two words anyway, like Thothmos became the name Thomas.
Ah yes.
Or like Yosef became the name Joseph. So Patarech became the name Patrick. So a Patarech was in ancient Egypt. A Patarech was a priest of Ptah. Now I'm saying priest, but back in the day, they wouldn't have called themselves priests. You know,
It's the modern equivalent of what you are
What would they
associated
call
with, maybe.
themselves
it's
then?
probably not the right word to use, but
What would have been the equivalent word in Egypt?
well, the ancient Egyptian culture, like the ancient Irish, you know, the
Yeah.
Druids, they were a shamanic culture.
Right.
So, it would be the word kin,
Oh yeah.
which they put a
King.
G on the end of, and it became king. But it would be kin, and a kin can be male or female. A kin is, you know, part of your family, your
Yeah.
tribe, or an elder.
Yeah.
So-
elder. Yeah.
The priest really evolved from the elder of the tribe, if you like. You know, when we moved, let's say, from a shamanic culture into a more religious,
Yeah.
man-made religion, and that's where the priest, the use of the word priest would come in. So maybe it's not the best word to use, but it's just because people would understand it, and particularly in relation to St. Patrick as well. So maybe a better way of saying it is a Patarech would have been somebody who was a wisdom keeper
Yeah.
of the aspect of the wisdom that pertained to Ptah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's it's a longer way of saying it.
Pertain to Ptah.
Pertain to Ptah.
That's really
That's hard to say, you know.
Yeah.
Say that hard as
The priests that pertain to Ptah.
Yeah. So I suppose in Egypt there was all different nomes or areas, and in each area a different part of the one body of knowledge was held. I think we spoke about this before. And it's not that, you know, there was bits and pieces held everywhere. What I'm trying to say is it's holographic. So while there was an area of the wisdom specialized in one area, or a part of the wisdom specialized in one area, it's holographic, so the entirety of the wisdom would be there at the same time.
Yeah, even if it appeared that it was just focusing on a specific,
Exactly.
specific part.
Yeah, they may be focusing on a specific part, but the entirety of it is there. It's holographic, so it's everywhere.
Yeah. So all of it is always contained in a
Yeah,
piece of it.
yeah. So for purposes of learning, let's say, the knowledge was put forward in such a way that they used things like imagery, for example, to portray certain aspects of the knowledge, because we're trying to build a bridge between language that we no longer understand which is the language of symbols and pictures, the language of sound and light. So we're trying to translate that language of imagery, of symbols, of sound and of light into words of the language that we use now. And the language that we use now is a lower frequency, if you like.
Yeah.
So in the ancient world, they used images to convey this information.
Yeah.
Images and symbols. So the idea of Ptah, for example, we'll just describe the imagery of Ptah. So Ptah was considered, well, translated by Egyptologists as a god in ancient Egypt. And Ptah would have been in the area of Memphis.
Yeah.
And his female counterpart would have been Sekhmet.
Oh.
So Ptah was, again, I'm just describing it as the Egyptologists would. Ptah was a god of craftsmen, metal workers, sculptors. Yeah. So he would be connected with, you know, in that way he's connected with the blueprint, as we discussed before, the blueprint of creation, the geometry, if you like.
Crafting it and metal working stuff into being.
Well, that connects in with a lot of things, but
Yes.
yeah. So we meant. Go
Could I
ahead.
just say, like, before we move on from the language of imagery and symbols, the hieroglyphs themselves are pictorial, because then they're going right into your right brain. But I feel, and we've discussed it, like the hieroglyphs are much higher frequency information, and you know the Rosetta Stone, and they translated it, but that it's still only one level of what the hieroglyphs are. I feel like the symbol is broadcasting a frequency that is not, you know, translatable into language. Is that right? Or
Yeah, well, when Champollion translated the hieroglyphs, he translated it based, as you said, on the Rosetta Stone and the other languages that were written on the Rosetta Stone. And so he translated each hieroglyph to represent a letter in.
yes,
So that's kind of like getting it backwards, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
There's an old expression like closing the stable door after the
horse is bolted. Yeah.
It's something like that anyway. It's like reverse engineering something. I don't know. But because our language evolved from the ancient hieroglyphs, and even we can go back further with it, you know, back to just more plain symbols, if you like, that we see in the mounds around the world, like for example in Ireland, but all around the world. So it's an evolution of the letters of languages, if you like. But Champollion was translating each hieroglyph to mean a specific letter.
Yes.
That's not the way the ancient mind would have operated, considering the hieroglyphs are older than the English language or the French language or whatever language he translated it into.
Yeah.
So how can one hieroglyph mean a letter in a language that didn't exist when they created the hieroglyphs?
Yeah. And so, but that was my point.
Yeah,
My point
exactly.
is that it's basically, we're looking at it in a very 3D,
that's what I'm saying,
level way. But like the Neolithic art here, like geometry, the symbol is broadcasting like a library's worth of information.
Oh yeah, that's why.
If your right brain is open and the frequency is right, you're downloading the information.
Well, that's why they were inscribed on the walls, basically.
Yeah.
So the temple represents. I think we're gone off a bit.
I know, but I just wanted to ask.
No.
It's
It's a good point. But the temple represents, you know, the human form, if you like.
Yes. Yeah.
And the blueprint, the geometric blueprint that's contained in the construction of the physical human body, is the same as the blueprint that's used in the construction of the temple.
Yes.
And all the pictograms and hieroglyphs that are inscribed on the walls of the temple are inscribed inside the body.
Yeah.
So it's as above, so below.
Exactly.
So when a person walks into the temple, I think this is the point you're making.
That's what I was trying to make.
When a person walks into the temple, the frequency at which the symbols and pictograms and hieroglyphs on the walls broadcasts directly to your DNA.
Yes.
Directly to your, I won't say your Akashic field, because everybody's Akashic field is one. Ultimately, it's all one. Yeah. But it broadcasts to your your specific, maybe,
signature frequency.
yes, maybe your specific
like a
signature
thumbprint,
tune, if you like.
your frequency
Exactly.
signature.
Yeah. And it acts as an activation,
Yes, exactly.
you know. And not just the temples, I might say. It's all the sacred sites.
Yeah, exactly. All
Over the world, yeah. And working with the geometry, in fact, is the mediator. It's the medium by which you actually don't have to enter a sacred site. I've mentioned this before, and I was asked it only...
mention it again.
It's just somebody asked me earlier on today as well about, do you actually have to go into one of the sites? And the answer was, no, you don't. If you can work with the geometry. Because when you're in the site, it's the geometry that you're connecting with.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can work with the geometry, you're basically connecting into every sacred site all over the world at the same time from the comfort of your own home.
That's exactly it.
So no, you don't have to go into the sites. It just, I suppose, it adds to the experience.
Yeah.
There's more things that you can avail of in the sites. Like the sites are harmonic resonators.
That's exactly it. Yes.
They interplay with different stars and planets. They interact with the light and the shadow. So there's lots of things that you will encounter in the site that you won't necessarily work on with the geometry, but you can still connect in, if you like.
But that's what I was getting at. Yes.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So
and we left off with Ptah, Memphis. We were talking about the craftsmen.
Yeah. Like so Memphis and Egypt, just to connect in with Ireland. Memphis and Egypt would have the equivalent as Meath in Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Maid, meaning kind of middle.
That's it. The fifth element.
The fifth element. If you want to, yeah. So, if you think in... No, actually, I don't want to get off topic. But, another thing about Ptah is that he held kind of three things in his hand. It was a waz scepter, an ankh, and a jed pillar. Now, probably a lot of people, if you're not familiar, the jed pillar was known as the backbone of Osiris. The ankh is known as the key of life. And the waz scepter is used in, you may see imagery on the wall, you may remember seeing it in Egypt, imagery on the wall where they hold, it's like a metal rod with a kind of an angled head on top. And they hold it to the back and to the front of the head of the initiate in the middle. And they usually hold the point of the waz scepter to the third eye area on the back of the head and on the front of the head. And they put the ankh, the oval shaped part of the ankh, goes around the metal part of the waz scepter, so you can move it up and down.
Oh, wow.
It's like regulating or modulating the frequency of the chakras. This is the ancient healing system. Now, I mentioned that Sekhmet was the female counterpart of Ptah. Sekhmet is to do with healing. Sekhmet is the lion-headed goddess.
Yes.
And she's to do with healing. She's to do with the protection of children. Because if you ever observe a lion, which is the feline family, so a cat, if you have a cat. I happen to be quite connected with cats, so you see how they're the most amazing mothers. And they protect their little kittens to, they will kill anything that comes near them, So Sekhmet kind of represents this dual energy of the power of the mother protecting the child and healing, the mother healing, So while Sekhmet is often portrayed as being this character that rips the heads off of people, if you can think, if all the mothers out there, if you can think of anybody trying to harm your child, then you understand that energy.
Yeah.
The energy of a mother going after something because they've hurt her child. That's the energy of Sekhmet. That's the power of Sekhmet.
Yeah, and then the dual.
And then you have the dual energy. If you look at
aspect
a cat, because most people will be more familiar with cats than lions. So if you look at a cat and you see how it is with its kitten, when there's no threat around, and when the mother is mothering the kitten, they're the most amazing mothers, the most loving, it's just incredible, the love that comes from them, So it's that dual energy. That's what Sekhmet represents. So as I said, Ptah, if you look at the image of Ptah, you see Ptah stands, excuse me, Ptah stands on the hieroglyph that represents Mat.
Oh, okay.
Which means that Ptah is standing on universal balance and harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he holds these 3 things in his hand. The Jed pillar, which is the backbone. Now, we say the backbone of Osiris, but it's literally the axis mundi, the backbone of anything. So it would be the axis of the world,
Yeah.
your own backbone,
Yeah.
your Puranic tube, which is the backbone of your energetic body, the central axis of the universe.
Yes.
So it represents
Yeah. All things at the same time.
it represents the
Like
thing which everything revolves around.
Okay. Like
You
could be
see?
the sun. You know.
Yeah, the axis,
Yeah.
the central point, if you like.
Geometry.
The Ankh, as I said, is the key of life, and that's all these symbols have. You could actually do a podcast on just each symbol if you like. And the Waz
There's
scepter,
an idea.
yeah, and the Waz scepter, as I said, is used in the healing system of ancient Egypt.
But if you're familiar with the story of St. Patrick, you can see something.
Well, I
emerging
suppose
in
what
St.
yeah,
Patrick
patterns.
have a crochet type staff he held.
exactly.
And
So
three things together.
Yeah. The shamrock.
the staff
going.
of Saint Patrick, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mentioned, or at least I think I mentioned a few minutes ago that Ptah is always represented as being green.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
I did. So we know that the most, which country is mostly associated with the colour green, which is Ireland.
Yeah.
So it also says about Ptah that he created the universe through thought and word.
Ooh.
So if you can see a connection with Thoth there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
That's why I'm saying that all this information is not separate. Like you might think Ptah is separate to Thoth and both of them are separate to Osiris, but that's what I mentioned earlier. It's all holographic. It's not actually, they're not separate. They're all one.
Yeah.
Each male deity, as they've called them in ancient Egypt, or god, if you want to say, like Ptah, Osiris, Set, Thoth, they're all the same. It's all talking about male energy.
Yeah.
So it's different aspects like Isis.
It's different
Hathor,
aspects of male
Sekhmet,
energy.
Yeah. And female.
And the same on the female side.
Like Isis,
So
Sekhmet.
Hathor, Isis, Sekhmet, Nephthys, and on, are all talking about female energy and different aspects of female energy. And I'm going to give a perfect example, okay? One person, a female, okay, can be a mother, a sister, a daughter, a wife, an aunt, a niece, okay?
Yeah.
Each role I've just mentioned, a mother is not the same as a wife. A woman does not pull the same energies when she's mothering her child as she does when she's being a wife or when she's being a daughter. You see, they're all different qualities of the feminine energy, and the same with the male energy. So, for example, a father, a son, a husband, an uncle, and a man is not the same. He does not pull on the same energies when he's fathering his child as he does when he's being a husband to his wife. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So what the Egyptologists have done is taken all these different figures which just represented male energy
In general.
and given them all different names. So this is Osiris, this is Ptah, this is Set, this is Thoth, and made them all seem like they're separate.
Yeah.
And then on the same side, the feminine. So this is Isis, this is Hathor, this is Nephthys, and made them all seem like they're separate.
Yeah.
But it's just talking about the male and female energy. And every single person has male and female energy.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about men and women here. We're talking about, we actually have a trinity of energies. Every individual has a trinity of energies. And we're talking about, and that's the trinity of St. Patrick as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And we're talking about the trinity of energies is male, female, and child.
Yeah.
And that exists within every individual, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman.
Yeah.
So we all have it. So when we're talking about the unification of male and female, which in ancient Egypt was known as the unification of the two lands, represented by Upper and Lower Egypt. But upper and lower is anything upper and lower. There can be higher dimensions, lower dimensions, higher self, lower self, male, female, conscious, subconscious. It's all of those things, you see. So the key word is the unification. So why am I talking about that? Because the idea I mentioned earlier on about Sheela and the gig, most people don't even know about Sheela and the gig.
Oh.
And Patrick or Ptarek and Sheela and the gig So if we can think Patrick and Sheela na gig in Ireland, Ptah and Sekhmet in Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? They're representing the same thing. It's male and female energy. Okay? Now, we're coming up to the equinox. So it's no coincidence that Ptah Rec Day is on the 17th. Sheela na gig is on the 18th. And then 1 or 2, depending on what day the equinox falls, but it's only maybe 1 or 2 days after that, is the equinox, which is about the perfect balance.
Yeah, the neutral energy.
So, disregarding what we may have been taught about St. Patrick, we have to leave that behind in order to follow the concept I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So think in terms of a unification. So those 2 days, Patrick Day and Sheela na gig Day, is about unifying the male and female so that we move into the equinox, which is the equinox is about perfect balance.
Yeah.
So that we move into that perfect balance with our, and remember the equinox is 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of light.
That's it.
Equal. So we're talking about moving into that equal place in ourselves. So an equal balance of our male and female energies. That's alchemy.
That's right.
That's inner alchemy. Now, a lot of people talk about alchemy in terms of turning lead into gold. That's exoteric, outer alchemy. Inner alchemy is esoteric alchemy, and it's about ascension. It's the teachings and wisdom of ascension. And that's what it's about. It's about unifying the male and female, because when you do that, you give birth to the child. That's what the story of Isis and Osiris and Horus is about. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. It's all the same retelling of the same story, you know?
Yeah, when your two energies are in balance, your male and female, what happens is you have access to the unified consciousness, which allows you Bing for your third eye to open.
Well, right? You know the expression, be like a child.
Yeah, like to be like
a child. Only a child can enter the kingdom.
That's it.
Kingdom of heaven. Because why? Because a child is innocent. A child doesn't judge. A child doesn't worry about tomorrow or think about yesterday. It just lives in the now.
That's it.
Yes.
So we need to become that. Become the child. But you can't become the child till you unify the male and female. In the same way that a child cannot be physically born into the world until a male and female come together.
That's right.
In perfect harmony. So it starts with balance. You can't be in harmony unless you're in balance first.
Yeah.
So balance and harmony go hand in hand. And in our ancient Druidic culture, here in Ireland, we might say that there's the visual evidence in. Now, okay, I know that the information has become lost over the years because Patrick represents the church and all of this. But I'm going back to the original knowledge. And what I'm saying is, in those festivals that we would have had in ancient Ireland, Patrick Day, Sheela na gig Day the day after, they're for the initiate, if you want to say the druid, to use those 2 days to balance and to come into harmony with their male and female. So on the equinox, they're in perfect balance. So it's an alchemical transformation to create the child. So what I'm also saying is this is the knowledge that the indigenous ancient Irish people had, you know, going back into the day and before, when we're talking about druids, and even back to what we might say is Atlantis and those times, Lemuria. This is the knowledge they had, and they went all over. I mean, it's all over the world in all the ancient cultures, but it has been submerged. So it's gone underground, in other words.
Yeah.
The mystery schools and all the information of the mystery schools had to go underground throughout the whole of what we have called the Dark Ages, which we're really only coming out of.
Yeah.
You know? And as a result, because we're coming out of that, this is now beginning to re-emerge.
Yeah.
So we can see it all over the world. I mean, there's just millions of examples, and it's amazing day by day to see how this knowledge is re-emerging. And what it is the feminine rising. And yes, the feminine has to rise to come into balance. It's not that it doesn't have the same power. Of course it does. A feminine and masculine have equal power. It's just that this illusion we have been subscribing to
And does that
We've been
relate-
conditioned into, makes us think that the masculine, the male energy is more powerful, but it's not. It's equal.
Exactly. And that's where it's most powerful, when it's neutral and
Exactly.
balanced together.
One within the other, perfecting the whole.
Does that have anything to do with the axis of the Earth being tilted? How it, like, once it was
Excellent
upright,
question.
yeah, and how now it is tilted, and there's different seasons.
That's an
and it
excellent
changes.
question, Charlotte.
And your jet pillar too.
Yeah, and that's the
correlation.
raising of the
Yeah.
Jed Pillar story. How
Yeah. That's a good question, because you know when you remember when you were in Egypt, and we saw particularly in Seti First Temple in Abydos.
Yeah.
Because this is where this festival in ancient Egypt took place, which was the raising of the Jed Pillar. Remember that? And I think I mentioned this in another podcast, but the Jed pillars that are inscribed onto the wall in the temples in Seti First are inscribed at an angle that's the exact tilt of the Earth's axis.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when you see them raising the Jed pillar, what it's really symbolically saying is raising the axis, which is what we call the Jed pillar, remember, is the central axis of anything. So of the earth, of the human. So if this is slightly, it's not off topic, but it's slightly off what we were saying, but as above, so below. So because the axis of the earth is off, then everybody's that's living on the earth, his axis is off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
they're out of alignment.
Well,
Yeah,
it's holographic, right? If the Earth is, then we all are. as well.
exactly. So I'm not necessarily saying that your spiritual spine is out of alignment, although I think there is part of it that is.
Or it's an illusion that it is.
But in your energetic spiritual body, if you like. So it's like kind of going around looking at the world kind of with your head slightly tilted. Your spiritual head.
You're like,
But you know, in seriousness, if you think in terms of, let's say, a gyroscope, and you know, like the child's toy thing,
Yeah.
when you
Yes,
press it
yes.
and it spins. So when you press one of those toys and it spins around, when it's spinning really fast, it spins upright. But when it starts to slow down, it
Yes.
wobbles and it starts to lean and tilt.
yes, yeah.
That's pretty much what the Earth is doing. So the Earth is revolving on its axis, but it's leaning and tilting at the same time, which means that it's going slower
Yes.
than it's capable of, put it that way. So if it was to spin faster, what would happen? Like the gyroscope. If it was to spin faster, the axis would raise. It would be an upright axis. Now, so many things happen. When something is spinning on an upright axis around something else, it makes a perfect circle, not an oval shape. But with a tilted axis, the Earth revolving around the sun makes an oval shape. And because of the oval shape, that means we have seasons.
Yeah.
Winter, summer, we're further away from the sun, closest to it at certain times of the year, because we're making an oval.
Yes.
But honest, if the Earth revolved in a perfect circle around the sun, we would live in what's really termed the Garden of Eden. There'd be no seasons. There'd be a beautiful, moderate, temperate climate all year round. We'd never be closer or further away from the sun at any time of the year. Anyway, that's slightly off
Topic.
But it's not really, because this is all the information that a Ptah Rek
What about
Would have to know.
would have had. So when I say a Ptah Rek, I don't mean to say that these would have just been a band of men. There was women as well. So a Ptah Rek could refer to a man or a woman of this knowledge, of this information, which is the same as saying a Ptah Rek would be the same as saying a druid, you know. So what was the information? Remember I said they were a shamanic culture. So their knowledge was about the earth energies, the solar energies, the universal energies, the celestial energies. And in so far in advance that we're talking about Nikola Tesla and beyond type of technology, because they understood about working in harmony, not against.
Yes.
You see, the male energy without the balance of the female always self-destructs.
Yeah.
We've
It needs
seen that
needs
story.
the balance, but then again, at the same time, the feminine needs the balance as well.
Yeah.
So we're mentioning the Trinity.
Feminine wouldn't move without the yin yang of the male pushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the feminine is receptive energy, if you like, and the
Yeah.
masculine is
Active.
the positive and active. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to put it in a way, let's say the feminine would be thinking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even though thinking is an active thing,
Yeah.
but it's in a kind of a neutral, not physical space, if you
In
like.
contrast to doing or something.
Yeah.
like
So
doing
let's say an
actively.
idea you have. We'll say that's the feminine, okay? But the masculine of that would be putting it into action.
Yes.
That would be your masculine energy. Your feminine would be conceiving of the idea.
Yeah.
That's the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
That's the real Immaculate Conception.
Thought.
The whole thing about the Immaculate Conception is actually a teaching, an ancient mystery school teaching about manifestation.
Yes.
So the Immaculate Conception is conceiving of an idea and giving birth to it in the physical world. So if you manifest a house by conceiving of the idea and then focusing on that idea and bringing it into the world, that house is your child. That's your Immaculate Conception. That's your divine child. It's not the divine child's not talking about an actual baby, even though it is that as well. It's talking about anything a conscious creator manifests in the world is the divine child, because it's been manifest through thought. If you remember, we said Ptah
Yeah.
created the universe with thought and word.
Yes.
So in other words, he had an idea and then he spoke it into manifest matter.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the combination of the thought, the idea, which is feminine,
Yes.
and the word, which is masculine.
Mm.
So this idea of bringing feminine and masculine together is not as superficial as you might think. And it's not as about men and women.
Yes.
This is about really going in. This is about unifying yourself
Yes.
in the whole, so that you can become that child on a higher level. It's ascension. It's the teaching of ascension
Yeah.
that has been turned into all this other stuff, but it's embedded in the symbols. So that's why I'm saying look at the symbols.
And the symbols are the Ankh, the Wa scepter.
All the symbols, the fact
The
that
jet
Osiris' skin is green.
Yes.
I mean, look at Osiris,
Yeah.
what he wears on his head, for example. He has a serpent coming
Yes.
from his
the
third eye.
rays. Yeah.
So what is Saint Ptah most
Yes.
famous for? Getting rid of the serpents in
But
Ireland.
what does that serpent represent?
Well, the serpents in Ireland, as we know, there was no snakes or serpents in Ireland. Serpents. Anyway, there was none in Ireland. So why was he, getting rid of all the snakes and serpents, and why is that associated with Patrick?
Yeah.
Because in reality, what it's actually talking about is the knowledge that we're discussing here.
Oh.
This ancient knowledge. That's what he eliminated.
yeah.
Was the ancient knowledge of the Druids. The symbol, the serpent was always the symbol of feminine energy.
Yes.
Why? Because an undulating serpent is like a wavy, not a wavy line. Like in geometry, circles, spirals, and wavy lines are always female, feminine.
They're not angular.
Angular are male,
Yeah.
and it's when you bring the two together that you create your pure geometry.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? The egg metamorphosis, so the egg shape with the serpent around it, that was a symbol for the initiates, right? Like the serpent.
That's
around
nearly
the egg.
like the kind of really old version of the Aurora Borealis, the snake
with
biting
the
its
snake's
own
flying
tail.
itself, but it was called the egg metamorphosis as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Because if the Aurora Borealis and the Metamorphosis is the same thing, the snake biting its own tail is
Yeah,
talking about
exactly.
eternity.
Yes, time. Yeah.
Infinity.
And we mentioned the circle earlier on as well.
Yeah.
Because the circle, the ancient symbol for the mystery school is a circle with a dot in the centre.
Right.
It was also the ancient symbol for the sun. The circle with a dot in the centre is there is nothing further or closer to the dot in the centre on a circle. There's no point
Yeah.
that's closer to the centre or further away from the centre on a circle. And there's no point on a circle that you can say that's the beginning and that's the end.
Yeah. Everything's equidistant.
So a circle is a perfect representation of eternity,
Yeah.
eternal, immortal. So another thing that we connect with Patrick is the shamrock.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing if you look at the shamrock. It's got 3 leaves, but each leaf has 2 kind of little indentations on them. So if you count them, there's 6.
Yes.
You know, the 3 leaves have,
they're kinda
like it's
split.
almost like the top of a heart shape.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
split into kind of like 2
Yeah.
parts, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at a shamrock. And so that actually represents the seed of life, the geometry.
I was just gonna ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, that represents the seed of life, the geometry. The shamrock, yeah.
And isn't that word It's like there's an Irish word and there's also... Is it
In Arabic, the word shamroch, any three-leaf plant is called a shamroch in Arabic. Yeah.
Very good.
So there's another link.
Yeah, so...
Oh, well, actually, did you finish talking about the meaning behind the snakes and St. Patrick? I don't think you finished talking about the...
Well, the snakes really represent, if you look at the use of the snakes in ancient Egypt, and you see how you see them in, first of all, I mentioned. So the question that Christine asked there about the snake wrapping around the egg of metamorphosis, that's a symbol, let's say, of this whole body of knowledge that I'm talking about here, and that I'm saying Ptah Rek brought into Ireland, brought back to Ireland.
Yeah.
We have a whole different story of St. Patrick coming into Ireland. I'm giving you the ancient mystery school
So
version of...
So in the ancient mystery school, he brought it back.
In the ancient mystery school, he would have been... You see, we're thinking that the Irish and the Egyptian and the Native American, and they were all separate people. But if we go back into the ancient world that we're calling Atlantis and Lemuria, these were all the same people.
Yeah, exactly.
And they all had the same knowledge and the same wisdom and the same healing system. That's why you see the same structures built all over the world.
Oh.
Yeah, South America.
Whoa,
South
that's a big
America,
page dropping.
Bosnia, all these pyramids all over the world, like because
Pyramids,
it was a worldwide
mounds,
situation. Yeah, mounds,
circular enclosures. Like I mean, they're all. You see all the stuff that you see in
Africa,
Ireland,
it's
all over
Africa,
Europe.
yeah.
You know, all over America. Native Americans, you know, serpent mounds, all that kind of thing. So I'm saying the serpent. If you look at ancient Egypt, and you look at the symbol of the serpent and how it's used in ancient Egypt, you see it on the head of the gods and goddesses and the pharaohs, and you see it on their head, and it's always in the area of the third eye. Now, one thing you won't see, in terms of looking at the kind of inscriptions on the walls, but if you see the thing they have around their head, the uraeus, it's called.
Yeah, the uraeus crown.
The uraeus crown around their head. That has the serpent on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's they have these things in the museum, and if you see what one actually physically looks like, so it's like a gold band that wraps around your head, and
like
the serpent is right on the front. Then there's a bar that runs across the middle of your head, dissecting your head in two equal halves. Then there's one that runs, a gold bar that runs from ear to ear over your head. So that's dissecting your head in half in a different way, which is basically like a cross on the top of your head.
Yeah.
But then what would be the body of the snake, if you like? So you see the head of the snake coming out of the third eye. But if you look at one of these for real, the body of the snake goes all the way down the back.
Yes.
All the way down the back.
Of your spine?
And the very tip of the snake tips the very root chakra.
Yeah. So there's
It's
like a golden band running down your back, like if you tied a ribbon around your head.
The whole thing is gold.
Yeah.
The whole crown is gold. Wow. So, and if you remember, I said the three things that Ptah holds is the Waz scepter, the Ankh, and the Jed.
Yeah.
And so the Ankh and the Waz scepter. Okay, a Waz scepter most closely will resemble a staff.
Yeah, with like a little fork on the end.
It has a fork on the end, yeah, which is like a tuning fork.
Yes, exactly.
On the end of it,
Exactly.
and then the top of it has, in ancient Egypt, it was an animal head that's slightly angled, and it's placed in at the back of the head, and the ankh is moved up and down, the staff part of it, to regulate the vibration of the chakras or the frequency of the chakras, to open and activate. So this is an ancient mystery school healing system or knowledge. Really. It's a technology, yeah. And that's what I'm saying, that St. Patrick brought into Ireland. And your question was, like, did he bring it in, or was he getting rid of it? No, he was, well, was there one he? There wasn't. You know, that's the whole point. There was no one person.
Ptah Rek is a title.
It is a title.
It's not an individual's
name. It is
name.
A title. It's
like
the name
Moses
of...
is a title, not an individual's name.
Ptah Rek is the name of somebody who was in this knowledge, like who would have had this knowledge.
And so it's not... You know?
Yeah, so it's not referring to one person coming into Ireland, if you like.
So would that be to say that, like, the story of St. Patrick is kind of like a disillusion?
It's a distortion, yeah.
It's
a distortion.
It's a total distortion, yeah.
Yeah.
Of the real information, if you like.
Yeah, it's like completely
But then
Like it was all unified with the snake, but
well, I've said it
They're
before,
bringing
like all man-made religion is based on this ancient mystery school information.
Yeah, so they're taking it
And
and they're flipping it around.
When we do the workshops and when we do the journeys, we see exactly how
it's
all the man-made religions originated
Have a
from this
component of it.
ancient information.
Yeah.
But not, you can see it also in terms of where all the symbols came from. All the symbols in, for example, Christianity and all different religions. You can see where all their symbols came from when you look back at this ancient information that was held all over the world, not just in Egypt and Ireland, as I mentioned
But
before.
like an Atlantean worldwide.
Lemurian, Atlantean, all over the world.
But also the modern thing for me, the last couple of years, being very proudly Irish American and a lot of Irish background, is I thought it was wonderful to remember Ireland, but I actually now know it's a part of the distortion. And why is everyone getting drunk all over the world and wearing
on St.
green?
Patrick's Day?
I know, but the point is, and wearing green. So the green is the heart chakra. So this is definitely a distortion.
I agree. But the thing, that's it. Like, I mean, the whole story of Patrick is that has been distorted, you know. So just another kind of interesting connection, I suppose, about. But that's a good point, Christine, about people, you know, dressing in green and all over the world getting drunk, which is really what is associated with Patrick's Day, you know. And I heard a very good saying, actually, an expression, if you like, from somebody that they gave spirit to the Irish and took their spirit away.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh no.
Which is, you know.
So accurate.
Yeah. But one of the representations of Ptah is a character known as Bes in ancient Egypt. And Bes is a dwarf that wears like a big kind of hat and sticks its tongue out. But it's
We saw a lot of Bes in Edfood, there's a temple, and in Dendra.
yeah.
Besses.
But Bes was to do with motherhood and protection of the home and all that kind of thing. But if anybody wants to Google Bes, B-E-S, a god, whatever you want to say, in ancient Egypt, if you want to Google an image of Bes, probably the first thing that'll spring to your mind is that it looks like a leprechaun. So, and plus Bes was a lucky charm.
Yeah.
A lucky charm.
Yes, yes.
So I'm trying to tie in how all this information is one.
Yeah.
You know, it's one body of knowledge that has been dissected and separated and made look like it's all separate pieces. They did that by saying Osiris is different to Ptah and Ptah is different to Set, when not explaining that they're all one.
Yeah.
They're explaining different qualities of male energy. Same with the female. It makes more sense when you see it that way. But when that's the Tower of Babel, you see.
Yeah, I
the
was just gonna
Tower
say
Babel.
like.
The Tower of Babel is about confusing knowledge. You know?
Well, even I think I kind of thought of the Tower of Babel came to mind when we were talking about how going back and back and back, this information was all one. It wasn't like the temples, you know, like the Native American temples or Egyptian temples. They were all the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Before people were
It was unified.
before unified. They all had the same information, and all these stories are just telling the same information, but in different ways.
Well, it's like if you
But it
look
was
at
the Tower of Babel,
it's a bit
confusing everyone,
yeah,
and
exactly.
dispersing around the world, like.
in a modern comparison, I would say it's like okay, when we look at America, for example, most people think of America as being one country.
Oh yeah, but it's
America is not one country.
United
50
States.
But even if you think about it, okay, each state on the continent of America is actually a country in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. Different cultures, different people.
That's why they all have different laws.
Only thing that unifies America, symbols.
But
of
when you say the
America.
United States of America, you're talking about the corporation that is the United States of America.
Yeah.
So it's maybe it's not the best comparison in the world, but it's like you know, we refer to, as I said, America as the United States, thinking that it's one. It's not. It's not one. There's all kind of
It's
separate.
divided even while it's united,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
is a metaphor for humanity.
So it's kind of what I'm saying, you know, like the ancient cultures with all their ancient structures all over the world are one, you know, they're one, like the way we consider America being one country, even though effectively it has all its own little countries and,
Compartments, yeah.
you know, maybe that's not the best comparison in the world, but it's just the one I came up with.
Keep
Maybe.
thinking.
Maybe it's there. But what I'm trying to say is all the structures all over the world were not separate in the sense that the ones in Ireland are separate to the ones in America, which are separate to the ones in China, which are separate to the ones in Egypt. They're all the same.
Well, they're all in the same grid network, right?
They're all in the same, exactly.
The net.
And also,
And
we're
while
the
all being-
human race, right? Like,
Yeah,
we're
and
not
while all being-
races, we're human.
While all being the same, they have their individual focus and quality, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, yeah. I would agree.
So, really the idea of Patrick and Sheela na gig in ancient Ireland anyway was the same as Ptah and Sekhmet in Egypt. And in case I haven't made it clear throughout the podcast, it's a body of knowledge representing the process of ascension to bring together the male and the female, thereby creating the child on a higher level, which is your higher self,
Yeah.
your ascended self. So this is actually powerful knowledge. And what I'm saying is, in Ireland, it's encoded in Patrick's Day, Sheela na gig Day, and then a couple of days later, depending on when the equinox falls, the equinox.
Yeah.
So even though we have been void of this, most people don't have this information. They have a different story about St. Patrick. And so they don't do that. They don't focus on their male energy on Patrick's Day, their female energy on Sheela na gig Day, and then bring them both together on the equinox. They don't focus on that because they haven't been
Yeah, they don't
told
know.
that's what it's about. But in the energy of symbols, okay? So, for example, having a festival on a certain day is a symbol. A symbol doesn't necessarily have to be drawn on a wall. A symbol is something that represents something other than itself. So having the festival would be a symbol. And so the festival of St. Patrick's Day, of Sheela na gig Day together represent the festival of bringing the male and female together. So that's a symbolic language.
Yeah, exactly.
You're translating the information of what these festivals mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and realizing that what it's about is bringing the male and female together.
Yeah, and also...
And of course, what is St. Patrick famous to talk about? The Trinity.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Trinity of St. Patrick was the Father, the Son, and the Holy.
Ghost.
Well,
That's
what I'm saying.
indoctrination.
The Trinity is the male, the female, and the
And
child.
divine child. Yeah.
And that Trinity exists on all levels, if you like. So you can reinvent yourself and have ever higher increasing. When you get to the child, okay, you bring the male and female together and you get to the child. That child then goes through the process of bringing its male and female together and giving birth to its self
Yeah.
on a higher scale. So what I'm saying is this is an infinite
Cycle, kind of.
cycle
Yeah.
of
yeah.
self-exploration,
Exactly.
if you like. I think we spoke earlier about the universe is expanding and the human is no exception.
Yeah.
We are expanding with the expanding universe.
Fractals, right?
Yeah.
law of
Fractals. Exactly.
In geometry.
So
And what about the equinox in terms we discussed balancing the male and female energy. What about the implication of, out of your cycles of nature, there's a day twice a year or 2 days twice a year where the angle of the sun is exactly balanced on Earth. So that would, to me, be implying consciousness, right? Because
you mean on the equinox?
Yeah, on the
When
equinox.
when
there's
there's
one in the
12
spring and there's one in the autumn.
so when there's 12 hours of daylight and equal 12 hours of night. So that's I'm not sure I understood exactly what the question was, or
just
maybe it
meant,
was just a
like,
comment.
It was just a comment,
Yeah,
basically,
okay.
that we've discussed the male and female energy, but like tomorrow is the
Yeah,
equinox.
the
and, like,
equinox.
what would you say in terms of how important it is, like in
Well,
terms of
Yeah, well, I mean, the equinox is that point of perfect balance, and so it represents all of the things that we just spoke about: the balance of the male and the female, and balance and harmony being, one side, each side of the same coin, if you like.
Yeah.
And how, if you think, okay, this is how important it is, okay,
Yeah.
how bringing the male and the female together is, okay. How can a child be created other than, okay, it pops to mind, and I'm sure it's going to pop to someone's mind that's listening as well when I say this. How can a child be created other than bringing together the perfect balance of a man and a woman?
Yes.
Okay, now I know somebody is going to think in vitro fertilization and test tube babies and all that kind of thing. Okay, yes, that's the man-made
Concept or whatever.
interception of the whole
or
process.
something after.
Well, that's part of the distortion.
That's the distortion.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in the natural environment, how else can you create life? Only the male and the female of any species coming together. Okay, again, I know there are some species that are asexual,
Yeah.
that can produce themselves,
Plants,
but in general,
Yeah,
it's the bringing together of the male and the female. That's the only way that you can create new life. So we're shown in the physical every single day, and not everybody pays attention to how sacred it is.
Yeah.
But every day, when a woman gets pregnant, when a man and a woman come together, when the egg or the ovum is fertilized, becomes a zygote and starts on its journey of cell division and becoming a fully formed baby.
A consciousness.
That is a repetition, even in terms of the geometry, because the geometry is embedded in how the cells divide.
Oh, yeah. The seed contains the plant.
Exactly, and that's a repetition of all this knowledge. So that's how it's written in your form. How you divided began to divide in the womb. Mm-hmm. It's a numerical sequence. It's a geometry, and it's you. It's not just something you learn. It's you. It's how you got here. It's how you formed your physical form.
Yeah.
But in order to do it, you had to bring a male and a female together for you to be able to create that. And that's shown in the geometry when we say the straight lines and the angles are male, and the circles and the wavy lines are female. Because in the geometry, you can continue drawing circles forever, and you won't get to platonic solids.
No,
You can continue drawing straight lines, but you won't get perfect sacred geometric shapes. The two have to come together in perfect balance.
That's it.
So the equinox is representing all of that. The equinox is representing the balance, as I said, which brings us into harmony.
So it's all about the harmonic.
Exactly. You can't be in harmony unless you balance first. Now, we're talking about bringing male and female together to create. And what did I say the divine child was? Anything that a conscious creator manifests.
Right.
So don't just think of somebody giving birth to a child. We have to move this information on a higher level. Even though I'm comparing men and women in the physical world coming together to create a baby. I'm asking you to quantum leap this information now and think of the male and female existing inside you.
Yeah.
Okay? It's energy, not two separate physical people.
Yeah.
Okay? It's male and female energy existing inside you. And in exactly the same way as you see it in the physical world, you've got to bring your male energy and your female energy together in perfect balance in order to give birth to the divine child. Now, how do you do that? Okay? We already said. Ideas are the feminine. Okay? So your ideas, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, all of that is your feminine. Your creativity, all of that is your feminine. Okay? But none of that is any good if you never put it into practice.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? So the masculine is there to bring to be the active role for the passive energy. So a thought or an idea will never be anything unless you bring in action to make something happen. You see? So the two energies complement each other. They're not meant to be at war with each other.
Right.
No, yeah.
But we've had this whole
Distortion.
this whole
Division.
distortion that has led us to believe that the male and the female are at war. You know,
Yeah.
men are from Mars, women are from Venus, this type of thing. You know.
What I would even say.
Can I just
no,
sorry,
continue. No, go ahead.
I just to make, because it might even clarify the point you're making, because I don't want to forget it either.
No, go ahead.
The days of the 17th and the 18th of the festivals of Patrick's Day and Sheela and the Gig Day. If you do gematria on the numbers, which basically means bringing numbers to a single digit, okay, the 17th becomes 8 and the 18th becomes 9. So the ratio of Patrick's Day and Sheela and the Gig Day is 8 to 9. And 8 and 9 were always used in squaring the circle and circling the square.
Wow.
The square representing the male energy, the circle representing the female. That's a bit of an abstract concept I've just gone with there. And in case you didn't catch it, what I was saying was the 17th is Patrick's Day, the male energy. Add 7 and 1 and you get the number 8.
Yep.
Why am I doing that? Because in gematria, which I don't want to get into because that's another thing, you can look up the word, it's about you have to bring the numbers always to a single digit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So add them
Bring them to a single digit.
You combine them.
360. What's 360 in gematria?
9.
Exactly. So you bring numbers to a single digit. And I'm asking you about that for a specific reason. So 8 always represents the square. 9 always represents the circle. In squaring the circle and circling the square. Okay? And the 17th is Sheela and the Gig, is Patrick's Day. 7 and 1, which is 8, which is the square, which represents the male. The 18th is Sheela and the Gig Day. 8 and 1 is 9. 9 always represents the circle. I'm trying to show you how, in Ireland, this ancient information, which is encoded in the Great Pyramid by the wisdom keepers of the mystery schools, the Ascended Masters, is also encoded in our St. Patrick's Day and our Sheela and the Gig Day. Now, if you look at Sheela and the Gig portrays the first geometric shape that comes out when we start our geometry.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, what is it? The viscous bacilla. The shape of the vulva as she holds her vulva open
Yes.
is the oval shape of the viscous bacilla, also known as the fish bladder.
Yeah.
What was the symbol of the divine child known as Jesus?
Fish.
The fish. Okay.
Which is the intersection of the viscous.
Which is the intersection. The viscous bacilla, or that oval shape, the shape of the vulva, the shape of the lips, the shape of the eyes.
Yeah.
It was also called the fish bladder.
Fish bladder.
The shape, the viscous bacilla was also called the fish bladder. That shape, or an almond shape, okay? You often see religious images of Jesus coming out as if he's
Yeah, very
stepping
much in
out of
churches.
that almond shape. Okay, why? Because that almond shape is the portal through which life enters the third dimension.
Yeah.
Yes.
The void, yeah.
So you see the almond shape, the viscous bacilla, created by the intersection of two circles, shown clearly in the Sheela and the Gig. So what I'm trying to say is there's powerful knowledge, highly advanced information, of which is completely and largely unknown.
Yeah.
I think to most Irish people, and I think to most people.
Yeah.
I'd say most
But I think to
people at this
Irish
point-
people specifically about St. Patrick's Day,
Yes.
and probably Sheela and the Gig as well.
I
Although
don't
I
think
think
many people know Sheela Gig.
probably
Sheela
not
Gig,
not
no.
many people, but I think it's
basically.
beginning to. I don't think I know. It's beginning to come up in people's
Shift, yeah.
awareness now, because, and again, this will be another part of the podcast. The feminine energy is rising, and this is not about women's rights and feminism and all of that. That's why that's another part of that
Distraction.
people get. Yeah. This is about alchemy. This is about ascension. And men out there, don't be thinking that you haven't got feminine energy, because you have. And women out there, don't be thinking you haven't got masculine, because you have. And you've got to actually embrace your masculine energy. And you've got
And
to,
your feminine.
women have to embrace their masculine energy.
Absolutely.
And men have to embrace their feminine energy. And I see this in the workshops all the time when I run workshops. Men resist the kind of more emotional work that we do in the workshops.
Yeah.
When I say emotional, maybe that's not the right word. When we do the more spiritual talk, if you like, the more symbolic telling of what the symbols mean, the more quantum knowledge, if you want to say, that we bring in the workshops, I see men resisting it. When you tell them to colour in their symbols and things like that, they resist all of that, right? But men come to life when you hand them the compass and the ruler, because they love measuring and, all that kind of thing.
The active energy.
Women, on the other hand, seem to freeze and panic
Yeah.
when you give them a compass and a ruler.
That's it.
The women are great with
I
all.
can say I resisted. Antoinette knows the first time I did it.
Yeah.
Remember, you were like, "You're gonna resist." I'm like, "No."
To be honest,
I didn't."
everybody will resist one part of it or the other, because that's where you have to work.
Years ago now.
Exactly.
but I-
Yeah. Even if you are a woman.
Yeah.
And you're more comfortable with the ruler. and the
Exactly.
compass.
To be honest, as a woman, I was more comfortable with the ruler and the compass,
Yeah. Exactly.
because I was more in my male energy, because of what I did, I suppose, in terms of, engineering and stuff like that. I would have been more comfortable with that, and resisted more the feminine part.
Yeah, because
So
I
I
draw
might be
everything
slightly-
freehand. So for me, it was like, ew. I have
Exactly,
to measure
Christine's
to
a-
be precise.
Exactly,
No.
Christine's an artist, and to use a compass and a ruler, I think she hadn't.
It took me a long time,
Yeah. So,
but I love
Just-
coloring everything in.
yeah. So in the workshops, I see it how it visually works, how men resist their feminine energy and how women resist their masculine energy, and that's what the geometry workshops do. and that's why the geometry is the activation, is the key, is the language. It's when you work with the geometry rather, you're working with the knowledge that's encoded in every single sacred site all around the world.
That's it.
So it's extremely powerful stuff.
And also when you work with the geometry, one of the aspirations I had, which was that through your past lives, your auric field is encoded with geometry, which represents knowledge, like past knowledge, right? So the more you do the sacred geometry, you're opening up to your own information you've carried with you through lives.
And that's a good point, actually, because the geometry as well is a visual representation of the Akashic records, if you like. Yeah. In the same way that, and again, I actually talked to somebody about this morning, but if you see how the heartbeat can be made visible through an EEG. Yeah. So what you're doing is you see that white line moving up and down, you know, for the heartbeat. And what you've done through the mechanism of a machine is that you've made sound visible.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is, in terms of the geometry is the sound and light that created everything.
That's exactly
made visible through the medium of geometry. Yeah. And the one thing about the geometry that we'll always see as well is when we draw it, no matter how perfectly we do, when we actually physically draw our symbol with a compass and a ruler, no matter how perfectly or how much we've practiced, and I've practiced.
She's practiced a lot, let me just tell you.
There's always going to be error.
Yeah.
In the human drawing, exactly. So it's telling you that this exists in pristine condition in the energetic realm. Once it comes into the 3D, there's going to be distortion and error. So, and the idea, I think earlier, Charlotte, just to wrap it up here as well, is that you mentioned about, I know I mentioned before that the female energy never fell. And then I mentioned earlier on this podcast that the female energy was submerged. Yeah. And that's told through all our mythology, saying that in Ireland it says the Tuatha, who were the shining ones in Ireland, had to go underground.
That's it.
So we're talking about this knowledge.
Yeah.
The feminine energy, which is this knowledge, had to go underground. Yeah. Yeah.
So
there's a masculine aspect to this.
It went into your subconscious.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's symbolic for saying it went into your subconscious. So in our mythology, the Irish mythology, saying the Tuatha went underground and the mortals took above ground.
Yes.
That's basically saying all this knowledge went into our subconscious and we forgot it. Yeah. And we moved completely into our 3D selves and thought, if you can't touch it and stand on it and break it, then it's not real.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You see, there's more things than we can see and touch.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the feminine energy.
That's a Shakespeare quote.
Yeah, exactly. And all the idea that the feminine energy never fell. It's a paradox. It's true at the same time. Yeah. Two equal and opposite things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
The feminine energy was submerged, but at the same time never fell. You know?
An oxymoron.
So, it never fell because it's never gone anywhere. All we have to do is just it's like this. It's like the Earth.
Distortion and illusion. Yeah.
It's like when the Earth turns away from the sun.
Yes.
The sun didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. It's still
the Earth just turned away from it.
Yeah.
And that's why the people living on that side of the Earth are experiencing darkness.
Yeah.
The sun didn't go anywhere. We just turned away from it.
Yeah. It's still there.
So on that note, I think I'm gonna.
Well,
wrap it up.
That was fantastic. I will say myself, happy Equinox.
And happy Equinox. And that's the whole point of this, is to kind of explain also the Equinox as well, in terms of the festival of St. Patrick's Day and Sheela and the Gig in Ireland, and in Egypt, Ptah and Sekhmet.
Yes.
And to bring those energies together, creating the child, of course. So, happy Equinox to everybody, which is tomorrow. Well, it won't be tomorrow by the time whoever is going to be listening. Anyway, it's the 20th of March 2021 Equinox that we're talking about here. So, happy Equinox to everybody. And look forward to talking to everybody else again
we'll see you soon.
In a podcast very soon. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing, liking, and sharing with other people so we can spread the word and the information.
Absolutely.
And helping me at the same time, of course. So,
and helping you.
Like, subscribe, and share would be perfect. Thank you very much indeed, and take care.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.